BXB. It's in the game!
It's hard to believe, but it's been 15 years since 10 Tons Limited first came to my attention with the original release of Crimson Land, which was re-released in 2014 onto the Xbox One, PS4, PC, you name it, Nintendo Switch, all of that. And that sort of pure top-down twin-stick shooter action is what really defined the developer for me. And I'm so glad to see that they have come back to that sort of core premise with Tesla versus Lovecraft. I absolutely adore this game. The basic premise is in the name and in the video you're currently watching. You play as Nikolai Tesla, you have a confrontation with H.P. Lovecraft, and he decides to summon the Elder Gods and the dark eldritch horrors to face you and to stop your scientific progress. And he does this by setting fire to your laboratory, stealing all your stuff, and then you proceed to go on a quest across multiple myriads of different locations to get your stuff back, to power up, to become an unbelievable scientific badass and lay waste to countless horrors from the deep and from the outer reaches of dark, twisted minds. It's a fabulous experience. I played it predominantly on the Xbox One S, but I've also played a lot of it on the Xbox One X. I've beaten the game. The game is not a small thing, whereas with Crimson Land, if you remember, these were these top-down, very basic, empty fields of play. What we have in Tesla vs. Lovecraft, however, are much more intricate locations with choke points and pathways and obstacles that are many times fully destructible, that you're going to be strafing around and using to sort of funnel enemies and kite the enemies around the myriads of different locations and maps. So there's lots of variety, from urban settings to sort of eldritch settings to caves, and you name it, there's a lot of variety in here compared to, say, Crimson Land. But much like Crimson Land, we have lots of different power-ups, we have lots of different perks, we have lots of different enemies and weapons, and above and beyond all of that, even with the sprawling kind of open world-esque hub world that we have with map points, we also have, get this, a flipping mech. So in each area you're picking up power-ups, you're picking up perks, you're also picking up pieces to the mech, and when you have more than 6 pieces you can activate that mech and drops down, a bit like Titanfall, and you get in it and then you lay even more waste. And it's cool because the weapons on the mech, if you've been unlocking, say, extra spread on your normal weapons, that will transfer over to the mech and it will deal even more damage and rank up even more powerful attacks than it would do just a base calling in. So it's obviously quite strategic when you want to pull down the mech when the hordes of the enemies are at their most overcoming and just dangerous, and you pull that down and pulls you out of a really tricky situation. There's a purity to this combat. Like I said, it's a twin stick shooter, and it really exemplifies the fun of the leaderboard sort of chases. There's a survival mode in here as well. The infinite waves of increasingly difficult enemies, fighting them with your mech and all your other power-ups. But boy oh boy, I just love the fact that the game is so accessible with movement on the left stick, aiming on the right stick, shooting on the right trigger, left trigger activates different sort of pick-up power-ups you can get throughout the game, and it's just kiting enemies, watching them explode, jibbing them all over the screen. It looks fabulous, the resolution is great on the One X, it plays really well, I had no performance problems, load times are super quick. Sometimes from an indie game you just want something that does things well. This is a tried and tested formula. This is a type of game that 10 Tons knows very well how to make, and with Tesla vs. Lovecraft you have an exemplar of the genre. It's the balance between difficulty, challenge, knowing your power-ups. One of the cool things that's been introduced with Tesla vs. Lovecraft, because there's so many enemies on the screen, and because the environments are not just a plain field and you've got choke points, they've introduced this sort of limited range teleporting gameplay, so you can flip around the screen quickly to get out of those really bad encounters with enemies when you're pinned into a corner. Power-ups will also affect the teleporter, things like, you know, increased recharge speed and like doing damage when you teleport around as well. So there's loads of strategy based around those power-ups, based around the pickups you get in this game, the different types of weapons. You know, you're going to try and avoid power-ups sometimes because you're happy with the sort of set you have, and therefore you don't want to change your weapon or your secondary attack. So you know, you've got to be careful. And then obviously every time you level up in game, as you get more and more kills, you unlock a perk to pick from, and those things will obviously increase powers and buff you in certain ways. There's so much fun to be had with this game. Considering how simple it is, I've waxed on lyrical about it for some time now. I hope that conveys just how much fun I had playing this game. I'm going to keep going back to it. I'm going to keep playing survival mode, and I'm going to keep trying to get up those leaderboards, because my top 10 position right now is definitely going to be contested when this game goes into wide release. So expect to see me on the leaderboards. I'm going to be challenging you all the time. I love this game. It's easily a recommend for me. Without a doubt, it is 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.